Today, we are going to be multiplying radicals. So all we do with radicals is we are going to multiply what's on the outside times what's on the outside, what's on the inside times what's on the inside. And then we're going to simplify. We already know how to simplify. So really, it's very simple. My first problem, I have the cube root of -8 times 5. Well, -8 times 5 is 40. So I'm going to end up with the cube root of -40. Now, we're just going to simplify that. The way we simplify that is our factor tree. Remember, whenever we're dividing by a prime number. So we're going to divide by 2 and 20, 2 and 10, 2 and 5. Then we're going to look at our index. This number right here is a 3, which means that I need to do groups of 3. So I have 3 groups of 2. So that comes out front. Whatever did not get circled stays inside the radical. The other thing that we need to look at is this is a negative. So we just did negatives. A negative and this, because it's a 3, is odd. So when it's odd, that means that this becomes a negative number. So our answer is -2 cube root of 5. Okay, let's look at number 2. We have the cube root of 5 times the cube root of 25. So we're going to multiply what's on the inside. 5 times 25 is 125. So that means we end up with the cube root of 125. Now, to simplify this, we're just going to break it down. We're going to prime factor it. It ends in a 5, so that means we know we can divide by 5. 125 divided by 5 is 25. And then we can divide 25 into 5 and 5. The last thing that we do is we look at our index. Our index is a 3. That means I have to circle groups of 3. So that means that our answer is just 5. Okay, let's look at number 3, I'm sorry. Let's look at number 3. It's 27 times 9. So 27 times 9 is 243. So all I've done is I've multiplied 27 times 9 and it stays right inside my radical. Now I have to break down 243. I know that this can be divided by 3. 3, and when I divide it by 3, I get 81. 81 can be divided by 3 and I get 27. 27 can be divided by 3 and I get 9. And 9 can be divided by 3 and I get 3. Then I'm going to circle my head. I'm going to circle what I need to break it out of jail. To break it out of jail, I need 4 of them. So I need 4 3s to break it out of jail. So that means that this is equal to 3, the 4th root of 3. Whatever did not get circled stays inside the radical. All right, let's look at number 4. I have the square root of 2 times the square root of 8, which is going to give us the square root of 16. 2 times 8 is 16. Then I need to break this down. So I'm going to prime factor it. The other thing that you could do is know what the square root of 16 is or plug it into your calculator, but I'm going to prime factor it for you. So 2 and 8, 2 and 4, 2 and 2. And my index is a 2. Right now it's written, but if you don't see an index, then that also means that the index is 2. So I'm going to circle groups of 2. That means that my answer is 2 times 2 because I have 2 groups of 2. So whatever I circle is going to be multiplied if I circle more than one thing. So 2 times 2 is 4. The square root of 16 is also 4. Okay, let's look at number 5. So we've been just multiplying and we've only had something on the inside. So we've only multiplied on the inside. Here, I have something outside my radical and inside my radical. Now, the way that this works is I multiply what's on the outside by what's on the outside and what's on the inside by what's on the inside. So 3 times 2 is 6. Square root of 32 times 8 is 256. So I've multiplied the outside and kept it on the outside, and then multiplied the inside and kept it on the inside. And then we're going to prime factor this. So 256 is an even number, so that means that I can divide it by 2, and it becomes 2 and 128. 128 is even. 2 and 64. 64 is also even. 2 and 32. 32 is even. 16 is even. 8 is even. All right, that's a lot of 2's, but that's okay. Now, notice there is not an index. There's not a number there. When there's not a number, then that means it's a 2. So we're going to circle groups of 2. And these get multiplied. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have 6, because that's on the outside, times 2, times 2, times 2, times 2. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 2. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 2's. So I have 6 that's on the outside, times 2, times 2, times 2, times 2, which is what I've written there. That is equal to 96. So once we've circled everything, whatever's circled gets multiplied. Whatever is not circled gets multiplied and stays inside the radical. Everything got circled this time. Okay, number 6. So again, we have numbers on the outside of a radical and on the inside of a radical, which means we're going to multiply on the outside. So 4 times 5 is 20. And then we're going to multiply on the inside of a radical. 81 times 9 is 724. Now I need to prime factor that. So I need to prime factor what's inside my radical. I know that I can divide this by 3. And remember, when we're looking for prime factors, we always start with 2, 3, 5, and 7. Those are the most common. So if I divide 724 by 3, I get 243. Divided by 3, I get 81. Divided by 3, I get 27. 3, 9, 3, 3. So I've prime factored this. Now, the last thing to do is well, there's 2 more things, I guess. First, I have an index of 3, which means I'm going to circle groups of 3 to break them out of jail. You guys hear my whiny dog? So I circle groups of 3. That means I have 20 because it's on the outside, times 3 times 3. Don't forget to multiply what's also on the outside. So 20 times 3 times 3 is equal to 180. All right, one of the things that I want to remind you about is when we're multiplying and we have a power, we add those together. So I'm multiplying, I have x squared times x to the 5th. I'm going to add those powers together and it's going to be x to the 7th. We're always just going to add those powers together. I have x to the 4th times x to the 6th. That's going to be 4 plus 6 is going to be x to the 10. The reason that I need you to know this is because when we're multiplying variables, it's going to look like this inside of our radical. And so we need to make sure that we know how to multiply our variables so that then we can figure out what we're doing. All right, let's look at number 7. So we have x to the 5th, the square root of x to the 5th times the square root of x cubed. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply what's inside the radical first, so that I will end up with the square root of 5 plus 3 is 8, so it will be x to the 8th. Now, we are going to do the longhand. If you figure out the pattern or the way that it works, great, good for you. If not, no worries, we're just gonna keep doing it this way. I have 8 x's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. My index is 2, so that means that I need to circle groups of 2. So my answer is x to the 1, 2, 3, 4, x to the 4th. And that's all we have to do. All right, let's look at number 8. So number 8 is the cube root of x to the 8th, y to the 9th, z to the 12th times the cube root of x squared, y to the 4th, z cubed, or z squared. Remember, we can only multiply if my index is the same. So if the index is not the same, we can't multiply. They are the same here. So we're going to multiply. We're going to end up with still the cube root. X to the 8th times x squared is going to be x to the 10. Remember, we're going to add our powers. Y9 times y to the 4th. 9 plus 4 is 13. And z to the 12th times z squared becomes z to the 14. 12 plus 2 is 14. Now, I'm going to rewrite these as 10x's, 13y's, 14z's. Okay, so I've written these, and I've written 10x's, 13y's, and 14z's. And the last thing that we have to do is we have to look at our index, which is a 3. That means I need 3 of anything to break it out of jail. So I'm going to circle my groups of 3. So anything that's circled gets to break out of jail, gets to come out. So that means that I have x to the 1, 2, 3, y, 1, 2, 3, 4, z to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then inside my radical is anything that did not get circled. So I have 1 x, I have 1 y, and I have 2 z's, so z squared. And that's my answer. So all we're doing is when we multiply, we add our powers. Then once we've done that, I write them out and then circle the number that we need. Anything that gets circled stays, or gets to come outside of the radical. Anything that does not get circled stays inside the radical. Okay, let's look at number 9. So we have the 4th root of x to the 4th, y to the 5th, z to the 17th, times the 4th root of x to the 3rd, y to the 4th, z to the 3rd. Now, all we have to do is, when we're working with variables, we are going to add the exponents. So we'll end up with the 4th root of x to the 4 plus 3 is 7, y to the 5 plus 4 is 9, and z to the 17 plus 3 is 20. Then I'm going to write out each one of these, 7x's, 9y's, 20z's. If you don't need to, if you know how to if you know the pattern, you're welcome to not do that. If you don't know the pattern, if you haven't figured it out, that's okay. We're gonna write it this way, okay? All right, so I wrote out my 7x's, my 9y's, and my 20z's. Now I'm going to look at my index, which is 4. That means I need groups of 4 to break it out of J. So groups of 4, I'm going to circle. Anything that doesn't get circled has to stay inside the radical. Anything that does get circled gets to come outside of the radical. So I'm going to write what did get circled outside of the radical. I have x. I have 2 y groupings, so it's going to be y squared. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 z groupings. Then, whatever didn't get circled stays inside the radical. I have 3 x's, so it becomes x cubed. I have 1 y, and I have 0 z's. So my answer is x, y squared, z to the 5th. Okay, let's look at our last one, number 10. So all we're going to do is we're going to multiply what's inside the radical, and then we're going to have to break it down. So I have a cube root times a cube root, which means I can do it. I have x to the 5th times x to the 3rd becomes x to the 8th. Y, 9. Now I'm going to write all of my x's and all of my 9's. So I've written my x's and my y's. Now I have to group them. And because my index is 3, then that means my groupings are going to be 3. Anything that gets grouped into that group gets to get out of jail. Anything else has to stay in. So my groups of 3, I'm circling. So that means that I have x. I have 2 groups, so it's x squared. And y, I have 3 groups. And then anything that did not get circled has to stay in, and I have 2 x's left, so that becomes x squared. And that's it. You have some homework to do, and then we'll get back together and we will work on multiplying radicals again on another day. Have a wonderful day.